All right, welcome to the foundation of microeconomics. So excited. I love this stuff. It's a shame I can't do this in class, but we're going to make it work. We're doing our best. So for this, you need your notebooks out. I'm going to go through the normal PowerPoint I would do in class, and then just the practice would be on your own. I'll try my best to explain it as I can. So again, microeconomics is all about individual markets or businesses. We're going to get to the business side of things today, and we're going to talk about how do businesses calculate their profit. As in, if you have costs and you have money coming in, your revenue, how do you calculate profit? So for us to be able to do that in the future, we just have to do a pretty basic, run through today of just how to calculate those costs. So I'm going to run through them with you through notes in Schoology. I have this worksheet here. It says Cost and Profit Formula Study Guide. This is not really going to be a grade. I'm just going to check it for completion. I would highly advise you to do this so you have it for your notes. But all they are just all the different definitions of ways to calculate things. It's going to help you a lot today in this worksheet I'm going to give you, as well as going to help you in all the future projects we're going to do. So I'm telling you, I'm not going to check it, but I would highly advise you fill this out. That way you have it. So let's run through here real quick. So we need to have some basic definitions for you to understand how this works. So again, this should all be in your notebook. If this is too fast for you, that's fine. Pause it. That's why it's a screencast. So here we go. Costs, revenue, profits, and product. These are the four things I need you to know the basics of for us to calculate all the different things later on. So costs. Cost is what does a business owner pay to run its business? And there's different type of costs. The two types of costs are fixed and variable. As in, fixed costs are costs that are the same every month, like rent. Rent is a fixed cost. It's going to cost you the same thing every month. And people that have salary incomes, like me, for instance, with Jeffco, I get paid the same thing every month for all year. All right, it's all negotiated. It's already settled. So that's a fixed cost for Jeffco. So again, fixed costs are things that don't change. Variable costs are all the other costs. Most things are variable costs, as in they're going to change based upon the market or based upon the day. So I'll give you another instance. My salary is a fixed cost, but if you work at Chick-fil-A, for instance, you're a variable cost because your hours change every week. And some weeks you work 15 hours and some weeks you work 14 hours. That varies, so it's a variable cost. When I worked at Subway, for instance, the lettuce, the tomatoes, the turkey, all the stuff that we ordered, that's a variable cost because every week the cost of lettuce could go up or down. Understand? But a fixed cost for Subway would be things like the toaster. You bought that toaster once, it was a fixed cost. You're not buying it again unless, obviously years later whenever you have to replace it. So hopefully you understand that. So like Chick-fil-A, for instance, Chick-fil-A, a fixed cost would be the grill, would be the register, would be, the computer. The variable costs would be things that change every month, like the chicken, the lettuce, the buns, in Chick-fil-A's case, the workers. You understand? So that's the difference between a fixed and variable cost. The next thing I need you to understand is revenue. Revenue is what the business brings in. So we talked about revenue before with the government and taxes. So the government brings in revenue through taxes. Well, obviously, if you're a company, you're not taxing people. So what is your revenue? Well, revenue for you would be what you bring in from the sale. So if I'm selling Pop-Tarts and I sell a box of Pop-Tarts for $5, my revenue of selling one box of Pop-Tarts is $5. If I sell 2 boxes of Pop-Tarts, my revenue should be $10. If I sell 3 boxes of Pop-Tarts, my revenue would be $15. Understand? So the revenue is what you're bringing in from every sale. The next one is profits. Profits is just a formula. It's revenue minus cost. So let's say here, I'm just going to type it in here if I can. There we go. So let's stick with that Pop-Tart thing. Let's say, I bring in $50 worth of sales for my Pop-Tarts. And Pop-Tarts cost me $45 to make between all the variable costs and all the fixed costs. So my profit then would be a positive. There you go, $5. So that's how I calculate profit. Now, sometimes it can be a loss. Let's say my cost was actually $55. Well, in that case, I would have a loss or a minus $5. Understand? It's the same thing with the government. We talked about, deficits versus surpluses. A profit is, if it's positive, it'd be a surplus. It's the extra money you bring in once you cover your costs. And a loss would be if your cost is higher than your revenue, as in you're spending more than what you're bringing in. All right, understand that's profits. Product, the last one, is just how much workers can produce with the resources given to them. So, for instance, I worked at Subway for years. I am a master sandwich artist. So, let's say in a 1 hour shift, I can make 50 subs. So, my product would be 50. But let's say Mr. Chamberlain comes over and he's not nearly as good and he can only make 30 subs in an hour. So, his product would be 30 for the hour. Understand? So these are all the basic just definitions of things that we calculate with microeconomics. So the last thing is all of these things we're going to measure in two different ways: marginally, and we're going to measure them in total. So let me give you marginal first. It's a more complicated one, but it's easy. I'm telling you. All right, let's just get the notes down. So marginal just means what does it take to make one more. So I'm going to go back to Pop-Tarts. Let's say it costs me $3 to make a box of Pop-Tarts. All right. So what does it cost me to make 2 boxes of Pop-Tarts? Well, if it would cost me $3 to make one and then $3 for the next one, it would cost me a marginal cost of $3. It's how much does it cost to make one more. All right. And the same thing, you can do the same thing with revenue, as in how much money do you get by selling one more? Everything with marginal just means one more. Marginal cost would be how much does it cost to make one more. And marginal revenue would be how much do you bring in by selling one more. It's all about one more. That's marginal. All right. So I'm just going to do a quick little example down here. All right. So let's see here. Well, actually, no, I'm going to do the next one, and then I'll come back to marginal. All right. So the last way that we calculate things is total, as in you add them all up. So with marginal, for instance, it was +1. But let's say we make 5 of these things. Well, if you make 5 of them, how much is it total? We'll add up all 5, and that is your total cost, or your total product, or your total revenue. So my examples here is for total cost. What is all my costs added together? That's total. What is my total product? Well, here's my example. If I have 5 workers that can make 25 subs in 1 hour, 20 in hour 2, and 5 in hour 3, what is my total product? Well, 25 in 1 hour, 20 in hour 2, and 5 in hour 3. So my total product then would be 50. My total product is 50 because in 3 hours they've made 25 plus 20 plus 5. Understand? That's total product. Now I'm going to go back to marginal here. I'm going to use the same sub making example, but let's find marginal product because remember it's +1. All right. So it's going to go by marginal product. Let's do this one by hour. All right, so in the first hour, I made 25 subs. And now in my second hour, I made 20, or the group made 20. So what is my marginal product of the second hour? The answer is 20. Not 45. I know total in 2 hours we made 25 plus 20, but remember we're doing by one more hour. So in one more hour we went from 25 to 20. So our marginal product was 20. All right, what is our marginal product of the third hour? Well, if we made 25 in the first hour, 20 in hour 2, what is the marginal product of the third hour? The answer would be 5. It's +1, so +1 hour, one more hour. All right, in that case, we made 5. So that's important because, again, marginal would just be +1, whatever the next additional one is. All right, let's see here. Okay, so with that being said, your assignment for today, after you fill out all of these concepts, so again, total cost, total variable cost, total fixed cost, marginal cost, total revenue. So all of these things you can figure out based upon the definitions I gave you. Marginal meaning +1, revenue bringing in, as in bringing what you bring in. So what do you bring in by selling one more? That's your marginal revenue. All right, understand? So you get all these definitions based upon the examples that I gave you in this PowerPoint. So your practice for today is this right here. I know it looks scary. It's not. And this is something that you're going to have to be able to do for Thursday, not Thursday, but the next assignment, and what you have to be able to do for your big final project. And that is you have to be able to calculate a business's costs and revenue and profit. So here is the situation. This is Andrea, and she sells or makes software programs. So if she doesn't she doesn't make or sell any, this is her cost. As in, it still costs her $60, because that's her rent, so total fixed cost. Her variable cost would be 0 because she's made nothing. All right, but still $60 because she has a fixed cost here, and obviously she's not bringing anything, so her loss is $60. If she sells one, she has now an extra variable cost. So what you need to do is you need to fill out the rest of this with the information. So I'm going to do this first one with you. What is her fixed cost? Well, we already know that because if she makes nothing and she makes one, it's fixed. It stays the same. It doesn't matter how many you make. Hence why it's 60 here and 60 here. So her fixed cost would be $60. Now let's go across. They're saying that if she makes one, it's $45 variable cost. So what's her total cost? You add these two together to get that. That's how I got 105. Now, to go from 0 to making 1, that means that her total cost went from 60 to 105. So what's her marginal cost? Remember, that's the plus 1. What does it take to make one more? Well, it went from 60 to 105, so her marginal cost was $45. The price was the same, doesn't matter how many you sell, $56. So her total revenue, she sold one at $56, so her total revenue is $56. If she went from 0 to $56 revenue, that means that her marginal revenue is 56 and went from 0 to 56 to make, or when she sold one. All right, and then profit or loss, well, let's look here. If she brought in $56 in revenue, but it cost her $105 to make one total, that means it's a loss, and that's what you're going to calculate. It'd be 56 minus 105. All right, so you would do that now all the way through. So your assignment for today is to do this correctly, answer these last two questions, and then submit it. That tells me that before we move on, that you can calculate all of these costs. That is the goal for today. Understand? All right, one last thing before I let you go, and I have about 2 minutes for my recording is going to stop. All right, I want to give you this definition. This is something that's going to pop up on your final exam and everything later on, but it's called diminishing marginal returns. This is something that I do. I like to teach in class because it's interactive. I can get you guys up and doing it, but I can't do that here. So I'm sure if you go to YouTube, you can find some students doing this somewhere. I teach a report in. But the definition of diminishing marginal returns, remember, marginal returns means plus 1 of your returns is in how much product you're making. So what this means is the more workers that you hire, eventually their output is going to decrease. As in, I'm going to use Subway for my example here. You've all been to Subway, and there's only one person back there making subs. It's not very efficient. They're running around. So you hire a second person. It gets a little bit faster. You got one person making the sandwich part, one person ringing them up. Then you hire a third person. You have one person doing the bread. You have another person doing the meat, and you have the person finishing and ringing it up. You hire a fourth person. You can divide up even more. You're seeing how it gets efficient as you're hiring people. But eventually this happens. What if you have 8 people? Let's say 8 people on that line. What's going to happen? Well, it's fun to act out, but just imagine in your head. You have 8 people. One person literally is just squeezing mayo on there. Are they contributing? Is it slowing things down or making it faster? Eventually, it actually slows things down. And that's why this is called diminishing marginal returns. It's a principle. So get this in your notes. There is a magic number of workers to hire if you're a company. And it's the magic number that it's most efficient. All right? So it may change on every company. And usually when we practice this in class, it's like 6 or 7 based upon the group. But every, company changes. Subway could have one number, McDonald's could have another number. But there is a certain point in which when you hire too many workers, output actually decreases and becomes inefficient. And this is called diminishing marginal returns. Diminishing as in it's decreasing, marginal returns as in you're getting less out of each one that you make. All right. So again, fill out this so you have all your definitions. Use those principles to complete this. Do it correctly, hand it in, and that is your lesson for the day then. Good luck. Let me know if you need help, and you can email me or do the conference office hours.